Welcome to EFT Nation, your home for all things tapping. For show notes and resources, please visit EFTtappingtraining.com. We are your tapping hosts. I'm Alina Frank.
And I'm Craig Wiener. The information provided in this podcast is not a substitute for counseling or medical advice. The information presented here is meant to inspire and educate listeners, but are not guarantees of any kind.
Okay, I want to discuss something that I often hear in the coaching world, in the EFT world, and that is the phrase, you got to meet a client where they're at.
Sounds simple.
It does, but I want to explore what that actually means because I don't think a lot of people really dig into what that actually means.
Okay. All right. So first, why? Why do we have to meet a client where they're at before we discuss what it is? Because it promotes a feeling of, if you do it successfully, right?
Yeah.
Then it promotes a client feeling witnessed,
Yeah.
seen, heard, maybe even understood. Maybe it's feeling safer, feeling a sense of belonging and connection and all of those things that help to promote a safe space of healing.
Right, absolutely.
So whatever we want to say, this meeting them where they're at means
Right.
Being able to create a safe, rapport-infused healing space is really important for any healing.
Yeah, it means that you're acknowledging and you're accepting your client's current. I mean, that's the thing. It's like underscore current emotional, mental, and behavioral state.
Okay.
And so
where they are in this moment as opposed to yesterday or last year.
exactly.
Okay.
Or where they will be, because there could be something that they're saying that is difficult for you because of personal beliefs, background, religious, that they could be saying something that maybe is kind of offensive or upsetting. But if you try to meet them where they're at and understand that it's because of the past experiences, then aren't you the person helping them to change what they feel about those past experiences? And ultimately, you might be able to help them achieve a cognitive shift where they no longer feel that way.
Okay, I gotta back you up because you went off on a tangent I was not ready for. So,
I did.
Okay, so back up for a second just to make sure also I understand. So a client comes in and they have whatever perspective, bias, point of view that they have about an issue.
Yeah.
Something in their life, somebody that's bothering them, a challenging issue. Who knows? It can be anything from politics to religion to family problems
let's
to
just say
addiction to, any number.
And those are easy to see. But I want to, let's say that in my belief system as the practitioner. Right. In my personal life. My belief, and maybe one of my religious tenets, is to honor my mother and my father at all costs above everything else. I honor my mother and my father.
Okay, so that's what you bring.
Yeah, I try to set that at the door.
Right.
Now I get to a client who is presenting with, my mother is the biggest, whatever, and I hate her, and I hate all mothers. What the hell? All that. They come in feeling that way.
Okay. So your job,
yes,
as any kind of practitioner, EFT or otherwise, is to be able to put that aside so that you can hold a safe space for them to experience what they're experiencing.
Yes.
And hold the capacity for, depending on what they are trying to work through or heal or get to be able to get there without your judgment, bias, perspective influencing what you're saying, how you might be consciously or unconsciously steering the conversation toward acceptance and forgiveness and any of those things. So, so what I think I hear you saying is that meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And it can bring up ethical issues. Well, I believe that my methamphetamine addiction is okay to do because it gives me relief from my suffering of pain.
Right. So wait, so now I need to add an asterisk here to your asterisk of what I said. So my asterisk is going to be that not everyone is going to, I think it's okay to know, I think it's just maturity as a practitioner to know where the line is for you of maybe I shouldn't be working with this client because I do bring this bias. I probably have unconscious bias here that are not going to serve the client. I'm going to get in the way of this. And my priority is my client's greatest success, and maybe I'm not the person to work with them. So here's an example. An example is just like the one I said, but let's say I'm a devout Christian, and my client tells me that they are a Satan worshiper.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So we know personally a few stellar practitioners who have done a huge amount of personal work, which absolutely has to be part of our conversation here today. And they still know that they won't work with a person who is an addict or family member of an addict because they have a child. The practitioner has a child, an adult child, with an addiction.
Okay, hold on a second. Just covering a lot of territory here.
I know. There's a lot. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
Okay. So one of the things that I hear you saying
Yes.
is the self-awareness as a practitioner to have the boundaries and the best interest of your client in mind.
Always.
That when they share a problem that they want to work on,
Yes.
a conflict or an issue, and you know that you're not the best person for that because
Right.
you have personal complications with that issue, and you may tend to bring a bias or a judgmentalism,
Yeah.
that then you need to find out how to discover a way of referring or handling that client in an
Absolutely.
ethical and professional way,
Absolutely.
knowing that you're not the best person for them without them feeling judged by that referral either.
Yeah.
So that's one issue.
Yeah.
One is like because it maybe is against your moral values. Another one might be that I hear you saying is perhaps because of a traumatic aspect in your life.
Right.
Let's just say that you're somebody that had to endure sexual
Natural-
injury
or
or
natural-
assault
we know
or
someone
a
with
natural
natural
disaster, or
disaster, right?
any kind of trauma.
Yeah.
And that people coming to you with that, no judgment, but maybe you're not the best person because you can be easily triggered or have vicarious trauma and suffer as a result of working with that client.
And you won't be as good as you can be for
Right.
that client.
And so there's another professional boundary of maybe I'm not the best person for you, but you know what? Let me do a little bit of research and find somebody that's very skillful at this that I think would be a better practitioner. So avoiding vicarious trauma,
Yeah.
avoiding your own bias, because ultimately now we make the full circle, because what those might mean is that you can't fully meet the person where they're at in the full breadth of their negativity and emotionality or perspective.
Yes.
And therefore, you really can't
Yes.
well meet them there, which means full acceptance for where they are at right now, knowing it could change, but it may not change.
Right.
That level of, in EFT, it's like, even though I feel this way, I still deeply and completely accept myself. What happens if we deeply and completely can't accept the perspective of a client?
Right. Right. And so part of what we're talking about here is the importance of working on yourself. Absolutely, we know that the people that really I see as people that I hold up in high regard that are skillful practitioners are those, and incidentally, also the most successful, are the ones that continue to do the self-work. They've done the personal peace process, or they're working through it. They're hiring practitioners. They're working with swap partners. They're really working on releasing all of their past so that it does not come up unconsciously, unknowingly in sessions. And even if you do all of that, there could be the idea that, you know what, I'm just not the right person for this. And I just wanted to say, again, it's not about necessarily like clearing all my traumas, working on all my history, feeling like I can do it now because I've gone through it. No, you can still feel like you're not the right person because of your connection to the issue they're bringing.
And this isn't, I just want to make the distinction, this isn't a scope of practice issue. right? In other words, you might be fully capable or skilled at, as far as having the practices of being able to do that well, and it's within your scope of practice.
Right.
This is your personal connection that makes you self-aware enough to, you know what, I'm probably not the best person to help you with this issue. And you don't have to reveal, that's another thing, you don't necessarily need to reveal personal details.
Right.
It might just be, it's just a little bit close to topic. I'm not the best person for you, and finding a professional way to refer out.
Yeah. You know, when I think about what we're talking about today, I'm reminded of Carl Rogers. It used to be called client-centered, and they've changed it to person-centered therapy, or a person-centered approach to therapy and coaching. And I think it absolutely applies here to EFT practitioners. So some of the principles behind Carl, and so it wasn't that long ago. This was the 70s when this approach came up.
That's 50 years.
Oh gosh. Okay.
just saying.
Okay, so last century, yes. So things like an unconditional positive regard for your client, having empathy, being congruent, a non-directive approach, focusing on the present moment, and knowing and accepting that the client is the expert. And having the client become self-actualized. So those are the tenets of his work. And I think you look at all of these and you say, when EFT is done well, when EFT is done skillfully, then it absolutely incorporates all of these. Let's just take one, congruence. And that means that I, as the practitioner, don't have any kind of hidden agenda, that I'm not trying to trick my client into saying something or to realizing something. I'm having them come to those natural, organic, cognitive shifts and different set of beliefs and healing that happens. I'm allowing that to happen from the client. I'm not pushing for that agenda. And I'm also not having the goals that I want for the session be the priority. It has to be the client who in conjunction with you creates a set of goals that they want to achieve.
Yeah, this brings for me kind of the subtler ones. I mean, those sound obvious to me. Ones that are subtler for me is like, well, of course you'd want to, if you were, somebody's telling me they want to resolve a relationship issue, and from my perspective, it's like, of course you'd want to forgive them, right? Right. So that's like one that isn't as obvious, but it can subtly infuse.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm also thinking of like Gabor Mate in his book In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, the tendency, if somebody is an addict, for example, that life is better without that. Right? And in his book, he deeply goes into what it was like when he started to really approach them. Like, maybe we're not trying to get you off.
Yes.
Maybe the relationship here is not about quitting and not about being sober and maybe I can let go that bias of thinking that that's a better life without it. And so, I'm more intrigued in those things that we bring that are subtler, that we don't even realize we're bringing. Of course you want to be more successful, or the things that just seem so obvious to us, that maybe that's not what the priority is, or maybe that's quite triggering for a client. So in the congruence, it's asking enough of those open-ended questions to hear the between-the-line statements and thoughts of their relationship to what they're wanting to achieve that oftentimes surprise me. Right. And it's not till I ask those open-ended questions and really try to check anything that I'm assuming at the door that that those really insightful statements come out of the client's mouth. Yeah.
So as a good practitioner, you are listening, you are really paying attention to the client's words, you're using their words, you're paying attention to their tone, their body language, and you are, in a way, reflecting back what you hear, not just by nodding in agreement or just saying, yes, I hear this. You're actually using that in your tapping statements and reminder phrases. You're using their words without summarizing, without paraphrasing, because that can really, even that is a subtle way that you could break rapport and the client may feel judged.
I agree.
Okay. And so let's see, how else do we do this with EFT? We do it by increasing the trust and safety and rapport by accepting what it is that they're saying. We're not imposing our solutions or opinions on the client. We are really acknowledging that they have agency and they know themselves. And yes, maybe some funky feelings are in the way of really getting to know them, but that's part of the beauty of EFT inherently, is that it leads someone to feel that way. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that covers what I wanted to say.
Okay. And the other thing is that one of the tenets in Roger's work is the idea of the present moment. And I think that also, you're asking the client, what do they feel right now? It's not about what they felt back then. Mm-hmm. We know that can't change. It is what you feel in the moment. And even when they are, quote unquote, time traveling, meaning they're flooding or heading towards abreaction, you are present enough in the moment to be able to do things like orienting tapping or silent tapping to bring them back into the moment where all healing is possible.
That brings up for me, where we began was meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
And that can change minute by minute in a tapping session.
Yes.
So it brings up for me, mentees, early practitioners begin with even maybe constructing like the perfect statement, like, the second half of the setup statement, I deeply and completely accept myself.
Yep.
They work with, I accept this, etc. But then suddenly in a session, they're then triggered by an experience in which they're feeling self-criticism, self-judgment, shame, guilt, etc. And even though 3 minutes ago, I was congruent with I deeply and completely accept myself, suddenly experiencing this shame, guilt feeling.
Right. Yeah.
I don't feel that way anymore.
Exactly.
So that ability to meet your client where they're at is a very living, breathing, moment by moment experience, by memory, by emotional presence, that we want to really stay attuned to and work towards. None of us are perfect, but that intention that we're continually, moment by moment, meeting them where they're at, is really important, because sometimes they might even say it and we might catch it. So we might want to ask, is that still congruent? No, actually I'm not.
Right.
So sometimes we may even catch that if we're really present.
If we're really present, yeah. Great conversation. I would love to hear from our listeners how they feel about this topic. Because when I thought about it, I heard somebody today use that phrase, meet the client where they're at. I'm like, well, some people might not understand what that actually means. So thanks for joining us, and let us know what you think about this. In social media, when we post this episode, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us today at EFT Nation. And remember that you can find show notes and previous episodes at efttappingtraining.com.